Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farm, the podcast. I'm your host, JC Young, and today's topic of discussion is this: perception is everything. Now, I was going through some of my morning work the other day, and what I was reading was talking about the difference between perception and reality, and how we are just really good as individuals and people at creating stories and altering our perception from what the truth actually is in any given situation or any given scenario outside of our entire life. Now, I am just as guilty of this as everyone else is. And I'm not sitting here trying to pretend like I have perfect perception or anything like that, because I think we're all going through a journey in life where we're going through different experiences. And every time you kind of go through new experiences, you go through this phase of you have your initial idea around what's happening in there, right? You start to build your perception around what you want to tell yourself is the truth in that scenario. And it gives you the ability to actually ignore the truth that God is actually presenting there, right? And I'm going to use God inside of this podcast because that's some of the stuff that I was reading on. Anyways, why is this a problem? Well, the problem here is, and I'll talk about just some of my personal experiences, right? I had a certain perception on people at certain points in my life. So for example, my granddad and losing the entire family farm operation, right? I blame my granddad for a lot of years. I do still have some level of resentment towards him just because of things that happened after the feed yard closed and just kind of some of the skeletons in the closet that were found. Just some things, I questioned his values, right? And his morals and what I really thought about him as a man and as a leader and business owner and things like that. My perception at the time was stuck, right? I was heavily in blame mode, and this is your fault, and why'd you do this? And my parents are suffering because of this and things like that, which, is logical, I would think, right? People are going to go through that, especially when it's a traumatic experience like that, where somebody in your family loses everything. And I see my parents going through pain, specifically my mom. As a son, I want to do something about that, and I need a target. And it's really easy to blame somebody in that scenario. Now, the thing is, though, is as I've gotten older, as I stepped out and started my own business in 2016 and struggled and grinded and had to figure stuff out, and I didn't have the availability to go get a loan or an operating loan or have a parent co-sign on anything. I literally had to build Legacy Farmer from the ground up. Like, I had zero help. I had absolutely zero help. And if you listened to other podcasts before in the past, you know what my journey was. And it was hard as hell. It was a struggle. And the thing is, though, is I wouldn't change one thing about it. And the reason I say that is because going through that struggle, specifically from 2016 to 2019, those years where I was trying to figure things out and how I was going to contribute to the ag industry and how I could help people, things like that. Before I started Legacy Farmer officially in 2019, it was a massive struggle. And like I said, I would not change those years, because once you reach success, which I feel like I've had some level of success with Legacy Farmer, my perception on my granddad started to change. Just my perception on a lot of scenarios that people deal with in the ag industry started to change. And so, for example, here, my granddad started the feed yard from nothing, right? So he had this attachment to what he had built. He had this ego, though, and this pride around what he had built. And it's the same common, story and situation that we deal with in the ag industry, with the older generation not wanting to let go. Well, if you're the generation that started it from nothing, I have a different viewpoint on that now. I have a different perception on that now, because I understand where he was coming from. I understand how that mentality got built, because God put me through this journey where I had to go build my own thing. And there is a lot of passion. There's a lot of connection. There's a lot of pain that I had to go through that just bonds me with that journey and with our business and everything like that. And it's hard for me to let go of things. So again, that's just an example there around how my perception of my granddad was wrong, because, growing up and everything, I saw him as being, too controlling or a micromanager and stuff like that. It's like, dude, just let go, right? Well, the thing is, though, is that when you start the business from nothing, you are used to being in control, and you want that control so that you can make sure things work out the way that you want them to in the long term. Now, obviously, with our family, that's not what happened long term, but I'm just giving you that example as how our perception of things is not always correct. And it's especially not correct when we experience a new scenario for the first time. Your perception is probably not going to be correct. This is true in business. This is especially true in marriage and raising kids, for example. My perception there has been wrong all the time. And my wife could probably give you a detailed list of all those things that I've done wrong throughout the years, just like your spouse probably could as well. But the thing is, though, is that my perception has changed over time as well, as a parent, as a husband, as a father, and things like that too. So the reason I bring all this up, and the reason that we're talking about this today, is because I guarantee you that there's certain scenarios inside of your life right now to where you need to challenge your perception, right? Are you really looking at the facts and the truth that God has laid before you, or has your mind started to play tricks on you and tell you a story that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but deep down, it's going to cost you long term. But in the short term, it feels great, right? You're good. You're happy with the story you're telling yourself. It justifies your feelings and your emotions right now. But deep down, you know that you're just avoiding the truth of the whatever situation that you're facing right now. And again, guys, this comes up in every aspect of life. From a business owner perspective, it's really hard sometimes. And we experience this with customers coming into Legacy Farmer, because when they come in, everything we do starting off is financial, right? Going from financial chaos and disorganization to financial confidence and clarity, right? So in that process, there's a lot of work that has to be done. There's a lot of opportunities for people to get exposed as well. And the first thing that people do when they have a lot of pride or they have an ego around their operation or their balance sheet and stuff like that, they are going to make every excuse they can. They are going to create the perception that they want inside of their head that's going to justify their feelings, regardless of what the truth is. And the thing is, the ego misleads, the numbers do not. And that is something that we constantly have to talk about with people. And the number one way to remove any emotions or financial scarcity, for example, that a lot of people struggle with, is update your numbers, right? Know your numbers, right? And that'll help you kill a lot of those stories, because otherwise, if you don't, that perception is going to start taking on really just a life of its own, right? And you're going to start to create the story in your mind, and it's going to cause you a lot of stress and anxiety, which is going to obviously cascade negatively into other areas of life, how you show up as a parent, as a husband, as a wife, as a father, or whatever it may be. It's going to compound, right, in a negative way there, and we don't want that to happen. So the thing is you need to look at all these situations in your life, just like I do. Every single time we face a new situation, or maybe it's a situation you've been dealing with for a long time, and you need to challenge your perspective, right? And you need to really look at, okay, did I create this perspective in my mind, or is this the actual truth that God is laying out before me, right? And a lot of times here, the reason people want to avoid what the truth is because the truth is painful, right? And I talk about people getting exposed with numbers and things like that. People do not want to be exposed. And from a man's point of view, that's especially true for men. We do not want to be exposed because deep down we have this pride in ourselves. That's what we want to call it. But there's also this ego too. And we don't want our ego to be hurt there. The thing is though, in order to advance and move forward in life and get rid of this perception that you're just creating inside of your mind, you have to have the courage to step over that line, to be vulnerable, to really just open up your arms and say, God, like, this is me. This is where I'm at right now. This is what's going on. Please lead me and guide me, is what I would say in that time frame. The thing is though, is that once you step over that wall and you have the courage to do it, yeah, it's going to suck for a little bit, but there's going to be all these new doorways that are opened up for you. And the thing is, like, I feel like God has all these doors planned for all of us. The number one thing that's blocking us though is our perception on the situation and our inability to really counteract that perception or the stories that we're telling ourselves and just face what the truth is. And the number one thing that comes up for me when we talk about that is there's this old saying around, the strongest or the most dangerous person in the room is the one that's quietest. The other part of this too, though, and I heard this, this wasn't too long ago, but it was kind of a remake of the quote. And it said the number one person, or the number one most dangerous person in the room, is the one that can understand and feel and has no problem saying it is what it is. And that's a very dangerous man, because it does not matter what happens in their life. They're fine. They know that they're going to be good. There's this level of confidence that comes with that. And there's this level of being able to face the truth and being comfortable with the truth, even when the truth sucks. And this is something, as business owners, as parents, as just people in this world, I feel like we all need to work on, myself included, because again, each stage of life you go through, you're going to be faced with new situations and new scenarios. And from that, you're going to start to build off your perspective. And then you have to have the awareness to stop and question yourself and challenge that perspective so that you can get back into what the truth is, which is what ultimately God put there before you, so that you can make the right decisions going forward. So my friends, hope you found this episode valuable. I hope it added some, additional things for you to think about today. I hope it ultimately invokes you to make some moves inside of your life and some decisions, and ultimately challenge your perspective going forward. So my friends, that concludes this episode. Hope you found it valuable, and we will catch you on the next one.